Here are 3 ways where you can help the Black Dog Chronicles to grow. Please like this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to push the notification bell as well. And most importantly, share this with your friends. Share a link on your favorite social media and let your friends know why you think they'd enjoy it too. Would you like to have the next story dedicated to you? Here's how that can happen. Leave a comment in the comment field below. The comment that gets the most likes will receive a dedication in the next video. So, what are you waiting for? And now, on with the story. Unicorn by Peter Dickinson. Read by Huw Carr. This story is dedicated to Stuart Macaulay and April Dion. Rhiannon was an orphan and lived with her grandmother in a village at the edge of the forest. She was one of Sir Bronwyn's orphans, as they called them in those parts. That is to say, her parents were alive, but her father was imprisoned in the dungeons of Castle Grim, and her mother worked in the castle kitchens to earn money to pay for his food. He had done nothing wrong, but Sir Bronwyn had accused him of stealing deer. Sir Bronwyn liked to have the best men from all the villages in his dungeons, so that the other villagers would stay quiet and good, and hardly dare murmur when he taxed them of every farthing they had. Everyone knew that Rhiannon's father was innocent. If he had really been stealing deer, Sir Bronwyn would have hanged him from the nearest tree. Rhiannon was not allowed to go with her parents to the castle. Sir Bronwyn made a point of leaving the children behind to remind the other villagers to be good. So she stayed in the village and did her share of the work. Everybody in the village had to work or starve. And since Rhiannon was only 9, her job was to hunt in the forest for truffles. The forest was enormous. Nobody knew how big or what lay deep inside it. Some said that strange beasts led there, dragons and unicorns and basilisks, which could turn you to stone by looking at you. Others said all that happened in the old days, and the strange beasts were gone, so now there were only ordinary animals such as boars and deer, and wolves and bears. Sometimes Sir Bronwyn would come and hunt these. Hunting was the one thing he cared about in all the world. Rhiannon never went deep into the forest. She always stayed where she could see the edge. Truffles are hard to find. They are a leathery, black fungus which grows underground on the roots of certain trees. And for those who like rich food, as Sir Bronwyn did, they had a peculiarly delicious taste and smell. Rhiannon always hoped that one day she would find so many truffles that Sir Bronwyn would send her parents home as a reward, but it did not happen. She seldom found more than a few, and sometimes she would dig in 40 places and find none. Exactly a year after the soldiers had come to take her father away, Rhiannon went off to the forest as usual, but not at all as usual. She was followed back that evening by a small white horse, no more than a foal, pure silvery white, with a silky mane and tail. The villagers were amazed. "It must have escaped from some lord's stable," they said, They tried to catch it, thinking there would be a reward. But before they came anywhere near, away it darted, glimmering across the meadows and into the dark woods. Then they found, to their further amazement, that Rhiannon's basket was full of truffles. "My little horse showed me where to dig," she said. This seemed very good news. Sir Bronwyn's tax clerk would be coming to the village in a few days' time. Truffles were rare and expensive. Perhaps they could pay all their taxes in truffles, and that would mean they would have a little food to spare for themselves this year. So next morning, a dozen men and women went up with Rhiannon to the forest, hoping the little horse would come and show them where to dig. But they saw no sign of it, and they found nothing for themselves. So at noon they went back to their own tasks, leaving Rhiannon behind. Again that evening the white horse came glimmering behind her, almost to the edge of the village, then dashed away. And again Rhiannon's basket was full of truffles. So it went on every day until the tax clerk came, and the head man brought him a whole sack-load of truffles to pay the taxes. The clerk was a monk who could read and write. He knew things that ordinary people do not know. When he asked how it happened that the village had so many truffles to send, the headman told him. The headman was a simple fellow. Sir Bronwyn saw to it that the cleverer ones were in his dungeons. That evening the clerk sent for a huntsman and told him what he wanted. And next night the huntsman came back and told what he had seen. He had followed Rhiannon up to the forest, taking care to keep out of sight, and at the forest edge a little white horse had come cavorting out and kissed Rhiannon on the forehead, and then she had followed it under the trees where it had run to and fro, sniffing and snuffling like a dog, and every now and then it would stop and paw with its hoof on the ground, and Rhiannon would dig there and find truffles. The horse was obviously extremely shy of anyone but Rhiannon, and kept looking nervously around, so the huntsman had not been able to come close. But then, when Rhiannon's basket was full, she had sat down with her back against a tree, and the horse had knelt by her side and put its head in her lap and gazed into her eyes, and she had sung to it. The little horse had been so entranced that it seemed to forget all danger, and the huntsman had been able to creep close enough to see it well.
"And sure, it's a very fine wee beast, your honour,"
he said to the clerk.
"What it be doing in these woods I can't be guessing. It's never seen bait nor bridle, I'd be bound. Never seen stall nor stable. As for the colour of its coat, it is whiter than snow, not a touch nor fleck of grey nor of yellow in it. There's only one thing."
"Yes," whispered the clerk, as though he knew what was coming.
"The pity of it is the animal's face. That's misshapen. There's this lump or growth, as it might be, big as my bent thumb between its eyes."
"Ah," said the clerk. Next morning he left his tax-gathering and hurried to Castle Grim to tell Sir Bronwyn there was a unicorn in the woods. The great hall of Castle Grim was hung with the trophies of Sir Bronwyn's hunting. Deer and hare, boar and badger, wolf and fox, heron and dove, he had ridden it down or dug it up or hawked it out of the air. But he had never hunted unicorn. Before the clerk had finished his message, Sir Bronwyn was on his feet and bellowing for his huntsmen and his grooms, and in an hour he was on the road with a dozen expert trackers and 20 couple of hounds. The people of Rhiannon's village were glad to see him come. Sometimes, when a village had shown him good sport, he had let the people off their taxes for a whole year. So here they were eager to help. They beat the woods, they dug traps where they were told, they set watch, but it was all no use. Sir Bronwyn's clever hounds bayed to and fro, and found nothing. His trackers found the prints of an unshod foal all over the truffle grounds, but lost the trail among the trees. After 3 days of this, Sir Bronwyn's temper soured, and the villagers began to be anxious. Then the tax clerk explained what Sir Bronwyn had been too impatient to hear before, that the only way to hunt a unicorn is to send a maiden alone into the woods, and the unicorn will come to her and lay its head in her lap, and be so enraptured by her singing that he will not see the huntsman coming. Sir Bronwyn had not brought any maidens with him, but the village headman told him about Rhiannon. All that night the villagers toiled by torchlight, cutting brushwood and building a great bank of it by the truffle grounds, high enough to hide a mounted man. In the morning they took Rhiannon up to the forest. When they told her what she had to do, she tried to say no, but by this time Sir Bronwyn had learnt where her parents were, and he explained to her what would happen to them if she refused. So she went into the forest and sat down, weeping, in her usual place, while Sir Bronwyn waited, hidden behind the bank of brushwood. For a long while, everything was still. Then suddenly, there was a glimmering deep in the dark wood, and the unicorn came delicately out, looking this way and that, hesitating, sniffing the wind. When it was sure all was safe, it cavorted up to Rhiannon and kissed her on the forehead, and knelt by her side with its head on her lap, gazing up into her eyes, puzzled why she did not sing. Sir Bronwyn broke from his hide, spurring the sides of his horse till the blood runneled. The nearing hooves drubbed like thunder. Then Rhiannon could bear it no more. She jumped to her feet and with her arms round the unicorn's neck, dragged it up and turned its head so it could see Sir Bronwyn coming. At once it reared away, giving Rhiannon no time to loose her hold. The movement twitched her sideways and up so that she was lying along the unicorn's back with her arms round its neck, and the unicorn was darting away under the trees with Sir Bronwyn hallooing behind, his spear poised for the kill. The hoofbeats dwindled into the forest, into silence. Then huntsmen and villagers, waiting out of sight beyond the forest, heard a voice like the snarl of trumpets, a man's shout and a crash. Then silence once more. The trackers followed the hoofprints deep into the dark wood. They found Sir Bronwyn's body under an oak tree, pierced through from side to side. His horse was caught wandering close by. Rhiannon came out of the forest at sunset. What had she seen and heard? What fiery eye, what silvery mane, what challenge and what charge, she would not say. Only when her mother and father came home, set free by Sir Bronwyn's heir, she told them something. They had taken her to her bed and were standing looking down at her, full of their happiness in being all three together again and home, when she whispered 4 words.
Unicorns have parents, too.